Jess Ottney Mahar from the Nature Conservancy, thanks so much for joining us here on New York Now with your perspective this week.
Thanks for having me.
So Jess, in November, voters will go to the polls and they will vote on the Mother Nature Bond Act, the Restore Mother Nature Bond Act. It's a $3 billion pot of money that voters will have to approve for the state to borrow to combat climate change. At the same time, as a lot of our viewers know and a lot of voters know, the state is currently facing a $13 billion deficit over the next year, $61 billion over the next 4 years. Is this the right time to be borrowing $3 billion to combat climate change? It seems like it might not win the appeal of voters right now.
That's a great question. I think that our financial situation will really depend on what happens in Washington, first and foremost. But second, what we know is that New Yorkers are concerned about the issues that come along with climate change and environmental degradation, just as they're concerned about this pandemic. And one thing that Governor Cuomo has pointed out that's so important is that as we build back from the economic and public health crisis that we're currently facing, we really need to build back the society and the state that we want for our kids and grandkids. So this investment in the environment will not only create jobs, which we all need right now, but it will also make sure that we are fixing serious issues that threaten the health and safety of New Yorkers across the state. So it's a really smart investment to be making at this time.
Can you explain for context what the $3 billion would be used for? The broad description by the governor this year was to protect or to combat climate change. But what specific initiatives are we looking for? Where would that money go?
That's a great question. So this money can go into communities all across the state. And there are 4 categories of funding that it can be used for. The first, as you said, is climate change. And reducing pollution that causes climate change is done by investing in things like buildings and facilities to make them more energy efficient and to site more renewable energy. But it's also done by urban forestry, planting trees in our cities and making sure that they're there to sequester, hold carbon, and also reduce polluted water runoff. The Bond Act will also fund open space conservation and recreational infrastructure. And boy, have New Yorkers been counting on this during this pandemic. So building more parks and trails so that we can get out into nature. It'll also help preserve farmland, which a report just came out from American Farmland Trust about a week ago, talking about how New York's farms are at risk. And with everyone worried about healthy food right now, that's really important. The third way it'll help New York is by protecting clean water. And we know that we need more investment in making sure our drinking water is clean. It'll also help with issues that we're seeing all across the state, like these harmful algal blooms that are closing down our beaches and bays, which are, again, places where people want to go for safe outdoor recreation right now. And finally, it'll make communities safer from the impacts of climate change. All across the state, we've been facing serious issues like flooding, and we need to make sure that our communities are prepared to deal with a future that will have more water. So we want to make sure things like our roads where they cross streams are upgraded so that they don't flood and blow out during hurricanes. That happened a lot up in the Adirondacks during hurricanes Irene and Lee. And we want to make sure that people living in areas where sea level rise is threatening them have a place to go or have natural areas that can soak up that water before it gets to them.
Let's turn to something called the Environmental Protection Fund, which is, for our viewers, kind of a pot of money approved by the governor and legislature every year to fund environmental and conservation projects. This fund has historically been kind of taken from by the legislature and the governor during budget negotiations to fund other things. And right now, with the state facing such a huge deficit and the governor already warning that cuts might be coming, are you worried that this Environmental Protection Fund might be on the chopping block?
We saw this during the recession. The Environmental Protection Fund was slashed basically in half. And we're hoping that now there's a recognition as we get this fund back that we will benefit by continuing those investments even during a crisis.
Right. It's definitely an area that we are watching. Jess Ottney Mahar from the Nature Conservancy, thank you so much for being here on New York Now. Always appreciate your perspective.
Thank you so much for having me.